Hello everyone, and welcome to the long-awaited Persona 5 Phantom Thieves book recommendations video. I know I promised this quite a bit ago when I did my Arsène Lupin video, and it took a little bit to figure out some of these books, but we got here. In this video, I'll be recommending one book to each of the Phantom Thieves, plus Akechi and Yoshizawa, and also the Persona 5 Strikers and Tactica new playable characters. So I believe we have 14 characters in total and one book per character. Before we begin, I'd like to just quickly point out that I chose these books as though I was recommending the book to the character, as though if I met the character in real life and they asked me to recommend them a book, this is what I would recommend them. So keep that in mind, and I'll explain why I recommended each book to each particular character. I will put timestamps in the description to each character, so you can just skip to your favorites if you want. I won't judge. And without further ado, it's showtime! First up, Joker. And for him, I recommend Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King. And this is the book that the popular movie The Shawshank Redemption is based on. It's a novella that first appeared in his collection Different Seasons, which I bought after I had this, hence why I have this. If you don't know what this is about, it is about a man named Andy Dufresne who gets wrongfully convicted of a crime and is sentenced to life in a maximum security prison, Shawshank. However, unlike most of the people in this prison who have just completely given up on life and any hope of escaping or any further purpose to their life, like Joker, Andy Dufresne finds a way to bring light back to the lives of his fellow prisoners, and he embodies the hope that the staff and the prison environment itself seek to absolutely stamp all over and just quash every spark of. So I'd recommend this to Joker because, as we know his situation, he gets wrongfully convicted of a crime and is ostracized by everyone that he meets for his reputation as a quote-unquote delinquent, a criminal. And so this book and also the Shawshank Redemption movie serve to show the power of hope and could presumably provide that in Joker and give him someone to see himself in Andy Dufresne and show to him how meaningful hope and rebellion can be. Next up, Morgana. To him, I recommend The Timekeeper by Mitch Albom. This is a book about two people. One is a young person who wants to die, and the other is an old man who is dying from cancer, an old rich man who wants to become immortal. And also Father Time, who invented time and who visits these people and shows them how those outcomes would play out. And he convinces them that might not necessarily be what they want. Why I'd recommend this to Morgana is because his main struggle in this game is that he is struggling with who he is and what he is, where he came from, and he thinks that he keeps saying, I've got to be a human, I want to be a human. And obviously, if you play through to the end of the game, you know that's not the case. So I think that this book would show Morgana that what you think you want might not necessarily be what you want, and there is meaning in your current circumstances, if you know where to look for it. Next up, Ryuji. Ryuji strikes me as someone who is, well, some call a reluctant reader. He doesn't strike me as the sort of person who would pick up a book for fun, or if he did, would he stick with it, you know? And to him, I recommend The Seven Ancient Wonders by Matthew Riley. And for one thing, in the back of the book, there's an interview by Matthew Riley, and he explains how his books have appealed to people who don't normally like reading. Even though this is a big book, It's over 500 pages. It's very easy to read. The chapters are short, and this series contains a lot of pictures and diagrams. Pictures and diagrams like this and like this. Hope those show up. It's full of pictures and diagrams and maps and symbols. And this story is a very action-packed story and very fast-paced. It's an archaeological sort of thriller, kind of in the vein of like Indiana Jones type thing, about this group of people who go to save the world by visiting the sites of the seven ancient wonders and collecting the MacGuffin of the day. That's the whole series. Like the whole series, they go to different archaeological sites and collect things or find things or get clues to save the world. So if Ryuji was going to read a book, that's the sort of book that he would want. A fast-paced, action-packed, easy to read, short chapters type of book. Next up is on Takamaki. And I had a different book planned for her originally until I started reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I thought was a far better pick for her. This book is about an actress who is telling her life story, and from what I've read so far, it's awesome, it's glorious, it's beautiful, it's powerful. And that kind of ties into why I picked it for Anne, because Evelyn Hugo seems to really embody and demonstrate feminine power, and that is one of Anne's major themes. And similarly, Anne gets into modeling through using her beauty, but not in a way that is objectifying. She actively fights against objectification she experiences at the hands of Kamoshida and others, just like Evelyn Hugo does in this book. So I think this is something that Anne would really enjoy and feel empowered by. Next up is Yusuke Kitagawa. This was one of the really hard ones I was struggling to find a book for, because I haven't read any like traditional Japanese literature that he would like, or anything really artsy. But what I end up going with is another Mitch Albom book, Tuesdays with Mori. This is a book about, well, it's actually a non-fiction book about Mitch Albom and his conversations with one of his former teachers named Mori. And so I picked this for Yusuke because of his experiences with Madarame and him losing him as a mentor figure, and how that kind of left him feeling very unsure of himself, where he was in the world, what to do with his life, how he's going to keep going. And so this might sort of help him heal a bit from that, find another sort of mentor, teacher figure to get some advice from in the meantime. Next up, Makoto Niijima. This one was also sort of challenging, but eventually I went with Battle Angel Alita by Yukito Kishiro. This is actually a manga, which you might not think that Makoto would read, but manga are books too. That's important. Graphic novels are books too. And I picked this because Alita is a fighter. She is especially with hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. And Makoto, as we know, is this epic. She does fist fighting. She's a queen, isn't she? And Alita definitely is a queen as well. I think Alita and Makoto would get along very well, and they would enjoy fighting alongside each other. It's a very action-packed story. It's a cyberpunk story set in this ruined scrapyard world, and Alita is a cyborg, and she discovers that she has knowledge of this martial art, and she is trying to find out who she is, where she came from, why she has this knowledge, but also fighting back against all of the gnarly sort of cyborgs and things in this world, and maybe try to leave it a bit of a better place than it was when she woke up to this world, you know? Next up, Futaba Sakura. And for this one, I went with The God Game by Danny Toby. This is a book about a group of people, a group of teenagers who get into this sort of virtual reality game that has effects on their real life. So they do challenges and get rewards in real life, but then things sort of start to go south and they try to get out of this game, and well, you'll have to read the book to find out. And it's I love this book because I'm a massive nerd, and this book is full of all sorts of nerdy goodness, all sorts of references, and it even includes like mythology references, maths references, like biblical references, technology, all sorts of good stuff that I think Futaba would enjoy. And there's also like, you know, hacking and stuff in there, which Futaba does. So I think she would definitely enjoy this book as a gamer, as a hacker, as a geek, a nerd, all of those good things. Can you tell she's one of my favorites? So next, Haru Okumura. And for her, I recommend Lady Helen and the Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. This is the first one in the Lady Helen trilogy. And this is a Regency era historical fantasy about an aristocratic young lady called Helen who is just entering society for the first time, and she discovers that she has these abilities and this duty to fight back against these people called deceivers who are like demons, sort of in human form. And I think this is a good pick for Haru because Haru also came from sort of rich circumstances like Lady Helen. Her whole life was sort of planned out for her by her family. She was expected to play along and be a lady, but then she found out about all this supernatural stuff and wanted to fight back against the forces in her world, defy female norms, and find strength and be just epic. So, and Lady Helen experiences a lot of the things that Haru also experiences. Also, I feel like this kind of era, that sort of literature, is what Haru would enjoy, you know? So, we've gone through all of the Phantom Thieves so far. There are still 6 characters to go, but before we get to them, if you liked what you've seen so far and you would like more Persona 5 recommendations and book content, please like and subscribe, because for my next theme recommendation video, I would like to either do the Persona 5 Confidants or the 12 major Olympian Greek gods to tie into the Percy Jackson series. So if you have a preference on which of those you would like, please let me know in the comments below. The other one will still get done, but just let me know which one I should do first. Also, I've just finished reading Arsène Lupin, Gentleman Burglar, and I've got one more thing related to Persona that I'd like to talk to you about that. And I've also got a list of other books that I think Persona fans would enjoy that I may not necessarily recommend to a specific character, or I don't think tie to a specific character. So there are at least 2 or 3 more Persona 5 related videos coming on the way at some point. So please subscribe so you don't miss those. Now back to your regularly scheduled Persona 5 character book recommendations. Next up we have Goro Akechi. No, I did not pick Sherlock Holmes for this one because we all know he's already read that. Instead, I picked Master of the Game by Sidney Sheldon, which I've already talked about in my November wrap-up and my top 10 books of 2023. So you know I like this one. Why I think this is something Goro Akechi would like is because it centers around manipulation, characters manipulating each other, deceiving each other, lying to each other, hiding things from each other, and sort of figuring out what's going on, whether what some of the characters are experiencing is the result of someone else's machinations or not. I think he'll just enjoy that. Nobody is quite who they seem in this book. Next up, Kasumi/Sumire Yoshizawa. This her I recommend, Ballet Shoes by Noel Stretfield. This one is about 3 sisters in early 20th century England who are adopted sisters, and they go to dance school and pursue careers in dance and acting and all that sort of thing, or trying to figure out, what they really want to do with their life, who they are, what kind of people they are, what they want to do, all that sort of thing, which is very similar to Kasumi's / Sumire's journey of living in her sister's shadow, wanting to be great at gymnastics, doing professional gymnastics, being pressured to be good at it. These are the sorts of things that the characters in Ballet Shoes experience. So I think this would be a meaningful book for her, and something that, I know dance and gymnastics are different, but also a little bit similar. So now we're getting into the spin-off characters. First, the two characters from Persona 5 Strikers, starting with Zenkichi Hasegawa. And I have a bit of a strange pick for him. I have Detective Pikachu, the book of the movie, by Sonia Sander. And while I haven't watched the movie, I've read the book and I've played the game. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but that is one of the reasons why I think this is a good pick for him. But Detective Pikachu is very much that sort of hard-boiled, gritty detective. And although Zenkichi isn't necessarily like that, I still feel like he would appreciate that. So there are two reasons why. One is that, the other is how this book ends, and which I think he would find meaningful. He was the other one that I really struggled with, so I hope this is an adequate pick for Zenkichi. Next up, we have Sophia. And since her main quest is to understand the human heart, I chose a book that I feel would be conducive to helping her achieve that goal and examine the human heart from numerous perspectives, and that is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. And this book, this specific edition, is the complete collection, so it has the novel Wonder and 3 novellas that expand on it. This is about a boy named Augie who was born with facial deformities, and he's just starting a new school. And so we see not just his perspective. That's one of the things that is great about this book, is that we actually get sections written from the perspectives of a bunch of other characters around Augie, and we see how they are affected by him and his situation, and how they see him, how they interact with him. Including in one of the novellas, the Julian chapter, we actually get to see the perspective of Julian, who was a boy who gave Augie a lot of grief, was a bit of a bully. And so we actually get to see his side of the story as well. So this whole collection really shows the complexity of the human heart in a way that I think would be meaningful and would invite a lot of questions from Sophia that I think her friends in the Phantom Thieves would be all too happy to answer. Now we have the two spin-off characters from Persona 5 Tactica. Starting off with Erina, for her, I chose Q by Luther Blissett. While I was a bit confused by this book and struggled to understand it a bit, I think it fits Erina's ideas of rebellion and more so revolution, and also taking part in revolutions that you're not necessarily affected by just helping these other people fight for a cause that is meaningful, even when you're not directly affected or oppressed by the people you're fighting against. So this is a historical novel about this mysterious guy who takes a lot of names and gets involved in a lot of different conflicts and revolutions and uprisings and undermining the system, getting into a bunch of shenanigans and fighting on other people's behalf, which is what Erina does and is all about. So I think she would appreciate this book and hopefully get a bit more out of it than I did. Last but not least, we have Toshiro Kasukabe, and him I recommend The Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwrecks by Mackenzie Lee. This is actually the third one in this trilogy, but each one follows a separate protagonist, and this one is set like 15 years or something after the other two. So you can sort of read it as a standalone, I think. This book is another Regency / Victorian era, that kind of time period, historical novel. It's a YA sort of book. We follow Adrian, who is the son of a nobleman and the last of his children that is still living with him, and he's being groomed to take up his father's position in politics in the House of Lords. And like Toshiro at the start of P5 Tactica, Adrian is sort of struggling to find his own voice and fight for the causes that he wants to, and rebel against his father's wishes, which we see with Toshiro in P5 Tactica, and actually be willing to go against them to fight for what he believes in. Like Toshiro in P5 Tactica, we see that Adrian initially struggles to find his voice and fight for what he believes in, as opposed to what his father wants him to do. And so we see Adrian eventually go off on his own to explore what he finds meaningful and find out about his lost siblings that disappeared, that he never really found out about. And as I said, find his voice and his place in the world and his, the kind of person that he wants to be, which is what Toshiro's whole journey in P5 Tactica is about. With that, that is all of the books that I have to recommend to the Phantom Thieves and other playable characters in the Persona 5 universe. If you would like to see more Persona 5 content, including a similar video for all of the other confidants, and also a bunch of other books that Persona 5 fans would enjoy, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss those when I make them. My next themed recommendation video won't be out till next month, but in the meantime, as I said in the middle of the video, there's another Arsène Lupin video and a Persona 5 general recommendations video that I like to do. And of course, I talk about books just generally as well. I've got a Divine Rivals review coming up if you're interested in that book or curious about it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, do lots of maths, read lots of books, and I'm sure you'll have an epic day.